Even though it had been in beta testing for 2 years before its release, Durango Wildlands was only available for 7 months before Nexon discontinued the project and took it off the market. This created a lot of sadness for some players who found it to be the best mobile game on the market. And even now, almost 2 years later, there is a huge fan base for this game. Well, I'm happy to announce that a version of Durango Wildlands is coming back. Okay, so before I go into Nexon's new Durango Wildlands, which is currently being called Project DX, let me give you guys a little bit of the background of Durango Wildlands, about what was great about the game, what was not so great, and why Nexon eventually took it off the market. Durango Wildlands was kind of the ultimate top-down sandbox MMO out there. The theme of the game is that rifts tore apart the world and we ended up living among dinosaurs. It was a survival game where you gathered resources and crafted them into better and better stuff. As you leveled up, you could craft even better and higher level stuff, which allowed you to take on bigger and better dinosaurs. Some of the things that Durango did that was amazing was how you gather resources. Everything from how much backpack space you had, to how you even got those resources, how you use those resources, the way you crafted things. It was just really dynamic simply because it allowed for so much freedom. Also, the class system they had set up required you to work with the other guildmates. So one person might specialize in gathering, another person might specialize in killing dinosaurs and getting their meat or skin, and then another person might specialize in tanning or rope making, or really the entire crafting process was several steps. Like, you might have someone who just focuses on tanning a hide, and then another person might use those hides to craft it into armor or weapons, but everyone would specialize and everyone had to work together, which was a really awesome aspect of the game. You didn't have to work together to just be able to create something, but in order to have the best stuff in the game, you all had to work together. They had a really good mission system where it's pretty simple to do your tasks, and the tasks weren't super grindy. I mean, there was definitely some grind to it, but it just kind of felt good. The rewards felt good, and it kind of kept you going through that day, gave you some focus on what to do next as you progress through the game. They had a really good travel system with warp craters and warp holes. You had your own personal island, but you also got to be in the MMO field on these other islands where you might be gathering resources. And then they had a clan island where you could build a base kind of in the wild. They also let you capture and ride all kinds of dinosaurs. And they had a really cool capturing system with, again, the theme that they kind of always had, where it was just really sandbox MMO. Like, really anything you could capture, anything you could ride, and they would all have really cool stats and their own unique elements. And it just gave so much freedom. If you wanted to be fast, then go this way. Or if you want to be strong, then go this way. Or maybe you just want to carry a crazy amount of stuff, then get this dinosaur. It was just a really cool, lots of freedom in the game. So those are the things that Durango did really well, but there was a few things that they never quite, mastered. And one of those things is combat. They had a really kind of a bad combat system, or I kind of liked it because it almost felt like turn-based, but a lot of people didn't like it. And then they tweaked it, they made it a little bit better, but they never really quite mastered combat, especially not multiplayer, like clans versus clans. It just never quite panned out very well. There wasn't any like 1v1. There just wasn't a lot of PvP in the game. And so for advanced players, that was something that a lot of people kind of wanted a little bit more of, just some more opportunities for some PvP. They did have some cool aspects of combat, like the ability to dodge. If you timed a dodge just right, then like a dinosaur would miss it and you would get all these bonuses, which was a really cool aspect. And the fact that that still somewhat existed in the PvP was exciting, but again, they didn't quite have it mastered. And so it was one of those things that was always kind of lacking in the game, is a good PvP system, both on the big scale of like clan versus clan, but also on the small scale of like 1v1 or different events that you could do. It was mostly just a survival game, and they leaned into that, which is good, but it would have been nice if they had a few more options in the PvP realm. The game also struggled to be able to communicate well to players how to play the game. Like, a lot of players were lost, which was really good for me as a YouTuber, as a tutorial maker. I actually got like 5 of the top 10 Durango videos because people were like, how do you even play this game? And I was able to show them how to play this game. It was really good for me. They even sponsored me. As my first sponsorship ever was Durango, and I was able to make a lot of great tutorials and help a lot of people in the game. I really enjoyed playing the game and was really sad when it got discontinued. But obviously on the mobile market, a lot of people don't go to YouTube. They just play it, and if they can't figure it out, they quit the game and they didn't know that there was a tutorial on YouTube for them, or they go on YouTube and on previous games and there's just a bunch of really trash tutorials, and so they're like, it's not worth my time, and they just move on. So a lot of people really struggle to understand how to play the game, which goes into the third category of why it ended up falling. That is definitely a big aspect of why it fell. Some people say, oh, the game was before its time. I don't think it was before its time. We've experienced a lot of really awesome sandbox MMO RPGs on the computer game. It wasn't crazy advanced. It wasn't before its time. It just had trouble communicating to players how to play the game, and they needed more tutorials, and they needed those tutorials to be integrated so that a player knew how to get them. And they don't necessarily have to do all that. Like, they would think it would be good for them to throw it into the game. They could have done what NetEase does, where they embed, YouTuber videos into the games. Like the tutorials that I made, they could have implemented, hey, you're having trouble with this? Here's a video, and then you watch the video embedded into the game. That would have helped a lot of players. So that was probably the main reason why Durango never took off. There was just such a high learning curve that it scared away a lot of players. That doesn't mean it wouldn't have taken off eventually, but I imagine that the retention rate was really low because players just couldn't figure out how to play the game. And in my opinion, that is the main reason why the game didn't do well. But there was a few other things that I think from Nexon's point of view, the game wasn't doing well. And I think one of it is the game was very free to play. The game allowed people to play the game and learn the game and succeed in the game without ever spending any money. And one of the things that they did, and I actually really like this, that I hope that Nexon with Project DX does the same thing. They made it to where in multiplayer with clans, one clan member could essentially fund, the whole clan with some really awesome stuff, like get them a trampoline or get them a hot tub or a pool to refresh their energy. There was all kinds of things that someone could buy essentially for the whole clan, and it would be like one clan member would sponsor the rest of the clan. And it was such a cool way of monetizing the game. Another thing that they did that a lot of games do nowadays that I really like is they create a global market to where there is their free-to-play currency and then there is the pay-to-win currency. You can buy things with pay-to-win, like just money, and then you can sell it for the free-to-play currency, which allows free-to-play players to go grind really hard for that currency and buy things from those players. And it allows pay-to-win players to buy something and get the stuff that you would have to grind for, like that free-to-play currency, and just get a ton of it because you bought it from the market and then you sold it to that other player and then you got all of their stuff. So it allowed for someone who grinded really hard to get stuff from the market, from stuff that they would normally have to pay. And I really hope that they include that. I've been pushing that for some of the other games I've been covering, like Frostborn, to implement that kind of stuff, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. It helps free-to-play players, it helps pay-to-win players, and of course that helps the devs. But from Nexon's point of view, because the retention rate was so low and they didn't have a ton of players joining, that's kind of something that you get long-term, right? Because initially people aren't going to go buy something to fund their whole clan. That's when they get really engaged. And a lot of people, most people had probably quit the game by then because they couldn't really figure out the game. So hopefully Nexon focuses on getting their retention rate higher rather than changing their monetization system. But I have a feeling that played in, because obviously if you're making a lot of money, then you're not going to discontinue the game. So I have a feeling that played a big role in this as well. So now let's talk about Project DX. We don't know a ton about it, but we do know that Nexon is hiring game developers to create this game, which they are saying is going to be inspired by Durango Wildlands. And we can see from the picture that it looks like it is still going to have a dinosaur theme. I think this is a brilliant idea because you can see by the lingering following of Durango Wildlands that it was a huge hit for those players. It reminds me of the TV show Firefly, which they discontinued after one season, and then people were like, no, we love it, and there's like this huge following for it now. I was talking to my father-in-law the other day, and he said that Star Trek was the same way. Like at first it was like, no one likes it, and kind of die, and then it would come back because there was this like really avid following for it, and it just keep growing and growing. And obviously Star Trek is huge nowadays, but it started out as just this really like die-hard fan base, and I feel like that's what Durango Wildlands has right now. It's just starting, but there's definitely that really die-hard fan base that loves the game. So if Nexon does this well, if they capture the beautiful aspects of Durango Wildlands and they fix some of the problems like teaching people how to play the game when they release Project DX, then I think they will be able to capitalize on this amazing fan base who are going to project it much further than Durango Wildlands was ever able to reach. And then I hope they stick with it, because when you have that kind of fan base and you're able to capitalize on it well, those guys are they're gonna die for you. They're gonna go for whatever you want, they're gonna go for it. And the truth is, Nexon knows what they're doing. Nexon is an amazing game company. They have some really good games. They know what they're doing. They probably saw that diehard fan base and said, oh, that is amazing. We need to really capitalize on that, which is why they're making Project DX. So if you're a big fan of Durango Wildlands, then get excited, because Project DX is going to be exactly what you're wanting. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.